Explain what, in your mind, would be about.
Well, yes, I think on the one hand, David, you've got politicians in Europe, some of whom are talking about punishing the UK for leaving the EU. I think what they want to see in terms of that punishment would be a bad deal. And secondly, you've got politicians here in the United Kingdom who seem to be willing to accept any deal, whatever it is, just for the sake of getting a deal. And I think the danger is they'd be accepting the worst possible deal at the highest possible price.
Beyond all the claims and promises.
Details between these talks, of course, is Theresa May, leader of the Conservatives, and Daniel Dechamps, leader of the Labour Party. Could they be moving towards a Brexit resolution? There are all sorts of moving parts. So, on the one hand, she could move some of her red lines, talking about a customs union. Then there's an argument within the Labour Party itself as to whether that should be put to a popular vote, whatever decision is reached.
Right, so they are talking, and they say they're making progress, and Theresa May says they'll continue to talk, that they will, and then they will end the talks soon, with or without an agreement. But she has made, there's all kinds of signals that she is stepping back from one of her red lines, which was to not have a permanent customs union with the EU, to leave that from the customs union. And that seems to be something the Labour Party can work with. That if there's not just this temporary customs union, but there's something there. Now, of course, she doesn't want to call that because that would be betraying members of her, that could be viewed as a betrayal to members of her party, with whom she said they would not have a permanent customs union. But it looks like they are talking, they are continuing to talk, and Jeremy Corbyn and his folks are giving signals that these are the kinds of discussions that they could live with.
We're actually coming up to 3 years from the first referendum. That's due in 2023. Yeah, 6 weeks from now. Where are we on the second one? And might that actually be a point where Theresa May and
Actually, there is some agreement there. Jeremy Corbyn so far is resisting attempts from some of his party to say that any agreement with the Prime Minister on the customs union, or whatever you call it, must be predicated on having a second referendum. So he's so far holding back on that. She, of course, is very opposed to the second referendum, saying that can't occur. She would be more willing to have the customs union than that second referendum. So far, they're both, at least for now, resisting that second referendum.
Explain what, in your mind, would be a bad deal.
Well, yes, I think on the one hand, David, you've got politicians in Europe, some of whom are talking about punishing the UK for leaving the EU.
Mr. Tusk, you also did say that it should be done by all 28 nations. Now, the answer must come from London. I heard from you, and I heard it from President Tusk and others. But I think there's something you can do that you get the right answer from London. You can make sure that Britain remains a participant of the reconstruction of the church in Paris under the auspices of the European Union. Make sure that Britain stays a member of the European Union. Thank you.
I think what they want to see in terms of that punishment would be a bad deal.
Sounds like we're still stuck, basically where we were almost a year ago. And it sounds like actually you're not really thinking any differently at all. You did talk about compromises, but it sounds like your version of compromise just means telling everybody else that you were right all along. What's the evidence that you're actually going to shift position? I mean, look, resilience is a strength, but stubbornness is a weakness. What is the evidence that you are actually on something as important as customs to manufacturing across the country, that you are actually prepared to properly make some changes?
Well, you asked what the evidence is on compromise. There are a number of areas on which we have shown our willingness to compromise in matters relating to the withdrawal agreement.
There are issues, but not on this one.
Well, first of all, you accused me of not being willing to compromise. I pointed out that we have shown our willingness to compromise. On this particular issue of customs, what is important is that we are able to sit down and, if you like, tease out what the different elements of this is it isn't sufficient simply to say there's one thing, that's it and that's not. Actually, there are different ways that we can approach this issue. We've already as a government been exploring those. We haven't come to an agreement with the European Union. You're right on that point. The political declaration identifies a spectrum of opinion. We are sitting down and talking through with the official opposition what are the different elements of this and what is it we are trying to achieve. I think we both want to ensure what we have as
I think what they want to see in terms of that punishment would be a bad deal.
Colleagues stood on our manifesto on a deep and close partnership with the European Union for the future. That's what we are aiming to achieve.
We feel like we're going round in circles and everybody's feeling paralysed at the moment and like nothing is changing. When we've got something that is as important as the impact on manufacturing and so on, that you know has been such a source of disagreement between people in Parliament, I guess I'll just ask you a final time, are you ruling out any change to the government's position on customs?
With due respect, I'm trying to point out is that we are having discussions with the official opposition on a range of issues. I think it is important on all of those issues that we identify what it is that we are all trying to achieve.
Well, yes, I think on the one hand, David, you've got politicians in Europe, some of whom are talking about punishing the UK for leaving the EU.
I think actually we are trying to achieve in this area something very similar, which is ensuring that we protect jobs. And we want to protect jobs. Government has negotiated, and it was hard fought in the political declaration, but we negotiated a willingness to accept that we should come together to see, to aim for as frictionless trade as possible between the UK and the European Union. How we achieve that has not been absolutely identified. So, first of all, we need to see what is it that will be agreed here in Parliament.
And secondly, you've got politicians here in the United Kingdom who seem to be willing to accept any deal, whatever it is, just for the sake of getting a deal. And I think the danger is they'd be accepting the worst possible deal at the highest possible price.
Parliament has had an opportunity to vote for various things, including a customs union. It has not voted for that. So, we have to say, what is it that actually can be achieved that will get a majority in Parliament?
I think what they want to see in terms of that punishment would be a bad deal. And secondly, you've got politicians here in the United Kingdom who seem to be willing to accept any deal, whatever it is, just for the sake of getting a deal. And I think the danger is they'd be accepting the worst possible deal at the highest possible price.
But all the ministers came together in our conference room and were briefed on the kind of exit we could have. Either what I would characterise as a high alignment Brexit, something like the EEA plus something like the customs union, or a normal advanced free trade agreement. And after going to and fro through the briefing, all of the ministers in the department together decided that we wanted a normal advanced free trade agreement because that would be the kind of Brexit which would fulfil the mandate of the referendum and indeed the mandate of the preceding speeches, the mandate of the general election. Our officials looked somewhat crestfallen. Clearly the advice was to go for a high alignment Brexit. And then subsequently, in a sense, the rest is history because the European Union then offered us that kind of Brexit. President Tusk's offer on behalf of the Council included an advanced free trade agreement.
Therefore, it should come as no surprise that the only remaining possible model is a free trade agreement. I propose that we aim for a trade agreement covering all sectors and with zero tariffs on goods. Like other free trade agreements, it should address services.
Now, the reason I mention this is that the constant refrain throughout my time in government was this atmosphere of reluctance to leave. And I think this is at the heart of the problem. While we won the vote, we did not win the argument, for want of a better term, I would call the governing class. So we've ended up with those who govern being forced to do that which they must to take us out. But it's not that which they choose. And that suffuses the entire approach. The entire approach is suffused by a reluctance to deliver what the public wanted, which is us controlling our rules in our parliament with all
I think what they want to see in terms of that punishment would be a bad deal.
Theresa May has been given brutal advice on what to do next, with no concrete progress made in Brexit negotiations between the government and the Labour Party.
About how to get out of what looks like the biggest mess any prime minister has faced in our life. There's nothing else we can do. There's literally nothing else.
Nothing else you can do. You're just wasting time. Pretending to go through negotiations with the Labour Party on Brexit. It's all, I mean, once a century, the Tory party splits over a big trade issue. In the 19th century, in the 20th century, it's doing again in the 21st century. And the Labour Party is split.
Theresa May's government have been in talks with Labour to try to get Brexit over the line after the Prime Minister reached out to Jeremy Corbyn before the Easter break. Jonathan Powell, former advisor to Tony Blair and David Cameron, claimed the Prime Minister should resign when asked if he had any advice for Mrs May. ITV host Peston asked, "Do you have any advice for the Prime Minister about how to get out of what looks like the biggest mess any Prime Minister has faced in our lifetimes?" Mr. Powell brutally replied, "Yes, resign." He added, "There is nothing else she can do. She is just wasting time at the moment. Pretending to go through negotiations with the Labour Party on Brexit. Once a century the Tory party splits over a big trade issue. It did in the 19th century. It did in the 20th century. It is doing it again in the 21st century. The Labour Party will split too." Speaking on the show, Conservative Brexit supporter Steve Double claimed Theresa May had one more chance to get her deal through the Commons. He said, "My view has been well established that we do need a change in leadership. I think Theresa May has got one more chance to try and get her deal through. If she fails with that, then I think she really needs to stand down and let someone else have a go." The Prime Minister is expected to bring her Brexit deal back to the Commons in one final attempt to get MPs to back the agreement. If Mrs May cannot get a deal through the House of Commons before the end of May, the UK will be forced to take part in European Parliament elections. But Mrs May has been warned that some Conservatives could quit the party if the Prime Minister agreed a deal with Labour. International Development Secretary Rory Stewart said, "Yes, that is a risk. If they are insisting on a no-deal Brexit, which is not something the majority of the country wants and is not something the majority of Parliament wants, then there is no alternative in delivering Brexit other than to have to reach across the aisle." Mr Stewart added, "I think the Prime Minister needs to deliver the first stage of Brexit before she goes." He said, "She would like to get this through with Conservative votes, but very sadly there are 30-40 Conservative colleagues who have steadfastly refused to vote for a Brexit deal. She must deliver a Brexit deal, that's what people voted for, we've got to do it responsibly. And if that means working cross-party on this issue, not in general, we don't agree with Jeremy Corbyn on 99% of things in the world, but on Brexit, there's a reason to do that. This is not a settlement for this week, it's something that's got to last for 30 or 40 years, got to last through changes of government, changes of parties, and I think doing Brexit cross-party could turn out to be a smart thing to do to reassure investors, for example, that this thing will last."
A legal battle claiming Britain has already left the European Union has been launched in the High Court by the leader of the English Democrats. Robin Tilbrook insists Britain left the bloc on the 29th of March as originally planned and dismissed Theresa May's extension as null and void because she never had the power to make such a decision in the first place. The legal challenge mirrors Gina Miller's high-profile court battle with the government over Article 50 in 2016. Mr. Tilbrook tweeted, "Our case has now fully served and issued and we are just waiting for the High Court to give us a hearing date in the near future. Now we really need as much help as possible so that we can match the well-funded Remain groups and the tax-funded government lawyers. The judicial review application argues Mrs May did not have the power to extend the Brexit date past the 29th of March. Mr. Tilbrook said, "What we're hoping to achieve with it is a declaration that we're already out. If you've read it, you can see that the argument's very strong. We've done it all. We started a month or so ago. We've served all the paperwork in advance and we've issued it today. I fully expect it to be heard fairly soon. I've asked the High Court for it to be heard on an expedited basis. I think the argument's strong that we're out. The government's proceeding on the basis that we're still in. We're saying that's not the case. If there's a declaration from the High Court that we're out, the government's got a new reality to deal with. Legal experts have cast doubt on whether Mr. Tilbrook's case will succeed. Tom Brooks, professor of law and government at Durham University Law School, told Mail Online, "I think the idea is that Parliament voted to leave on the 29th of March. This date has passed without a new Act of Parliament and so we're out. But Parliament did agree for the Prime Minister to have more time and both the UK and EU have agreed our deal remains. Or at least for now. This is through temporary extensions. Someone was bound to try this, but I'm not expecting a Miller-like result. Ms. Miller